Good morning. I'd like to introduce Bruce Asper, Bruce Eric Asper Sr. And can you tell me where you were born?
I was born in Butler, Pennsylvania, 1935.
And but you moved then. You didn't grow up there. Where did you grow up?
Oh, well, a couple of years later, my folks, I'm told, moved to a place called Beaver Falls, and a place right above Beaver Falls is a little suburb called Patterson Heights. And that's from my 3-year-old. I was roughly 3.
Okay, and why did your parents move there? Why did your family move
To be close to my dad's school at the time, he was teaching, a principal at a high school in Freedom, Pennsylvania, which was much closer. Beaver Falls was much closer.
Okay, and what language do you speak?
Just English.
But your parents spoke German and...
Yes, my dad spoke Norwegian. When he got on the phone with his brothers, especially, and his dad and mother, they spoke Norwegian. And my mother spoke German when Aunt Peg lived with us with her, as well as when we were up at those grandparents for various holidays and Sunday dinners.
So, did you have any nicknames when you were growing up?
Butch.
That was it, just Butch. Okay, describe your family.
Well, there were 3 kids, 1 girl and the 2 boys. I'm the oldest of 2 boys. My little brother was born when I was 10. So, frankly, I learned to change diapers and warm up bottles and things like that to help Mom during that time.
Okay, and your sister?
Yeah, my sister's name's Joan. She's lives alone in Nevada, and she has very little to do with her family, extended or otherwise.
What's your favorite meal?
Of all times, or just for regular times?
Just all time.
All time, actually Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everything. And what's your favorite holiday?
Also Thanksgiving, and largely because of the large extended family get-together. We rarely had less than 12 or 16, 18 people sitting around the table.
Right. Describe what you were like when you were a child.
I was very curious, and I was fortunate in that with my mother and my sister's help, I learned to read at a very early age. And so I immediately became interested in books and the newspaper and things like that. And I also played a lot and had a lot of neighborhood buddies and
What'd you play?
every sport pretty much. And football in season, baseball in season, basketball, etc. I was never any good, but I always enjoyed it. And by the way, another thing I remember about our youth is the difference caused by as I grew up during World War II.
Right. We'll talk about that in a minute. But did you like school?
I liked school from the beginning.
What did you like about it?
Frankly, the spirit of competition about grades and things like that, I like that. I like the friendships that you grew from kids in the neighborhood that you didn't know as well as you thought they did. I thought you did. They were very, it's much a neighborhood school, and most of us knew each other from the playgrounds, but there were some from a little further away that were in their own group, and it was nice just expanding your social horizons and that kind of stuff. I had great teachers too. That helped a lot.
What do you remember about your grandparents?
I have really good memories of, especially my paternal grandparents. My grandmother on my dad's side really loved kids and was very outgoing and loved to cook and let us come in the kitchen and ask her questions and sit on the table and all that stuff. Just loved kids. And my
Sit on the table or sit around the table?
no, on the table while she was cooking,
On the table. Wow.
not during meals.
Okay.
And she was a great cook. So was my grandma on my mother's side, but granddad on my mother's side, Granddad Schmeling, was not fond of kids at all. And Joan and myself, would actually tease him by rolling the hassock across his feet as he tried to nap in his chair and things like that, because we were trying to get attention from him. But it was always negative. Like, get out of here.
What values do you think your parents and grandparents taught you?
Well, my parents more than my grandparents, although Grandma Asper really taught me to have respect for elders, much even more so than Mom and Dad. But that was one of the values. Another value was to do your best when you do something. One of my dad's favorite expressions was, any job worth doing is worth doing well. And that kind of stuck with me. I also learned the value of thrifty living. Whether we liked it or not, that's what we experienced. And of being a good citizen, because during World War II, a lot of things were rationed. Butter, sugar, flour, things that we kind of take for granted because they were going to the war effort, plus gasoline was rationed. And it limited our travels and things like that. So those values stuck with me, as it did with a lot of kids in my age group.
Do you have any religious beliefs?
Yes.
Where do you think you got them?
From both the Bible, my Aunt Peg, frankly, really spent a lot of time talking to us about the Bible and about that. And ironically, she was a, what do you call that?
Christian Scientist.
Christian Scientist. And thank you for the help. And yet, also, I went to Sunday school from the time I could remember, even before I started school, until the magic age when we could go or not go on our own decision was usually 14 or 15.
How do you think those values that were taught to you have affected your life now? Just briefly.
I think it made me appreciate people, especially good people and good-hearted people. I also think, mainly thank to Mother, not to be a bigot and to respect people regardless of their ethnicity, religion, or even political persuasion. I think those help me make the kinds of decisions that I make now. And I just thought they made you feel better about them yourself if you do those things.
How did you meet your wife?
I met her in school. We went to the same high school. She dated some of my best buddies because we were a couple of years apart, and I dated some of her closest girlfriends.
That's weird.
Not including her.
No, we never dated. We didn't date until after. Describe your children.
We have 3 children. Our son Bruce just turned 56. His little sister's 52, and the adoptive sister is in her mid-40s. So we have 2 girls and a boy. And they're very self-sustained. They're all obviously out on their own, and they too have good values.
So let's see. Describe your life's work. I mean, how does it relate to your beliefs and values, your life's work? What is your life's work?
Well, my initial life's work was teaching in both high school and college. And it really made me appreciate what educators do and how important they can be. And it also made me appreciate age differences and adapting to what that age group can absorb and things like that. And I think it made me a better person, frankly, to be more patient and things like that. And then I transitioned to a business world career, and the values I learned there were mainly about how to be competitive in terms of your competition without being dishonest, and how important customer care was, because I worked for 2 companies in specific that were very into good customer care as a part of their idemic.
What sacrifices do you feel that you had to make to strive to keep your beliefs and values intact? Or did you?
I
feel
don't.
like you didn't?
I don't really think I had to make sacrifices. If anything, I'm sure the kids I chose to run around with as a kid, and even as a young adult, especially in those age groups, kind of reflected my values. I mean, I gravitated to kids who had good character.
What about your jobs?
The same. That most of the people I work for, frankly, were good, honest managers and or sales reps. And it would be those that I'd go to for advice when I was learning the jobs and things like that. You quickly could see those who weren't so.
What changes in the world? What changes the most in the world? What has changed most in the world during your lifetime?
I would have to say the impact of electronics on the world. Going to Google instead of going to the library to get knowledge for writing a term paper or whatever. Having your own cell phone and not sharing a landline in the house with 5 or 6 other families and waiting for them to get off the line so you can make a call or receive one. All of those things which have enabled us to have more time for leisure, reading, etc. And also, frankly, I've seen erosion of better values, which through age groups, which is concerning.
You mean kids, younger kids?
Yes.
Changing kids. Okay, what world event occurred during your lifetime affected you the most?
I would have to say 2 of them. The beginning of World War II and 9/11.
Okay, and what were you doing both of those times?
Beginning of World War II, everyone, I think, including you, Sandy, remembers exactly where they were at that time and probably what they were doing. And I was decorating a Christmas tree.
You were older.
Yes, that's true.
I was young.
I was 6 when World War II started.
Yeah, I was 4. I don't remember.
And Jacob's great-granddad, his granddad Corey, and I were decorating the Christmas tree because it was always done the first Sunday of December in our hand. And we had the radio on, no TV, and we were listening to the KDKA from Pittsburgh. And we found out World War II. We found out about the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor. And the main memory I have, frankly, other than being Corey explained it to me, other than being really worried and concerned about the country and going to war, the main thing that I remember out of that was Corey started throwing trinkets that we put on the tree into the fire. And he was looking at them before he closed them. I said, "What are you doing?" And he told me if it was made in Japan, we're not going to have it anymore. And when my parents came down later and found and heard it on the radio in their room to talk with us about it, Corey outed us about that and took responsibility for it. And Dad said, "That's fine. I understand."
Okay.
And 9/11, everyone, I think, also, and that's a nice simile, isn't it, that you remember what you were doing and where you were. And one of the reps who reported to me came up to me who had a fire person in New York that was one of her relatives. And she'd been listening to it, and she said, "Have you heard about?" And she'd explain it to me. And it was about mid-morning our time at work.
What advice would you give? I can't read this, Bruce. What advice would you give to some other, to a kid? I don't know what that says.
Number 17.
18.
Oh, yeah.
What advice would
What
you?
advice, yeah. I guess it says to reflect my values and things like that, and I think you've heard enough about those to understand what they are. But I think I'd also tell kids to be a good buddy and to have fun and to be able to have people rely on you and to do what you say you're going to do and do it well, and to have respect for your parents and what they ask and explain and expect of you to do, and your grandparents, and for elders, and for people that show good character on your part, and for your country.
Okay. So, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I'd like to tell Jacob to have a good life and enjoy himself and do well.